Hey, welcome to Get Your Life. I am your host, Dr. Carolyn Edwards, and we're talking everything to help you live your best life now. Today's show is a part 2 of buying a house, but today we are talking about how you get the free money. Who's giving money, how you can get the money, no money down, help you with grants. But we have our fabulous guest again, Mr. James Bunyan, owner, broker, and realtor. So welcome again, James. Tell us your company, tell us how you started, how you became passionate about helping people to buy homes and to build wealth.
All right, a little backstory about myself. I started in 96.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I've been at it for a long time. And when I first started, I didn't have a sphere of influence that could feed me business. So I had to figure out what's my best path forward. And I just happened upon a lot of the programs that's available to assist people into getting into the first home.
Right.
And once I really got involved in that, just the satisfaction of people who thought they'll never be able to afford a home and seeing them at the closing table becoming that homeowner, that's something that's always driven me. And I know no matter what's going on in the market, some people may not be buying their first home, they may not be upgrading or they may not be investing, but there's always somebody out there looking for their first property. So that's something that's always been near and dear to me. And I saw my mom struggle buying her first home. So that got me passionate about, this particular niche of the industry and just stay focused on it all these years.
All right. I like that because my parents too, I remember my parents tell the story when they bought their first home and they moved in with my mom's parents. So it's like, okay, they stopped renting, they lived in the basement and they saved their money. And I want the viewers to know, everybody's path is different, but find somebody passionate like yourself that's knowledgeable and that's willing to help you. So we're going to start with the local programs. I want you to tell our viewers, because again, everybody has a story about how they can get access to these programs and hopefully get into their first home, or if they have an investment home, let them know how to do it.
Okay. Like some of the biggest hurdle people face right now is, do I have enough to purchase a property?
Right.
And that is a legitimate concern because it is expensive buying a property today, especially the price point it's at. Without any assistance from the programs, if you're just doing a straight FHA financing, it can cost you up to 7% of whatever the purchase price is. So if the average purchase price of a home in Dade County is $500,000,
wow,
that means they'll need $35,000 out of pocket to purchase the property. That's a tall order for the basic working family to come up with. So there are a lot of great programs locally and nationally that will offset that. But like with everything, they have guidelines and terms that you need to qualify for in order to be able to obtain those funds.
Okay, so I did a little research, not originally from Miami, so bear with me, y'all. We have in Miami-Dade, we're in Miami-Dade County, we're in the Miami area, and so talk about some of the programs that maybe the first time, like I looked at miamidade.gov, and they had a first-time home buyers program. So just tell me, as a first-time home buyer, can I get the free money? And what do I have to do to get the money? And so tell them what to do.
I'm glad you mentioned the aspect of free money. Not all the money is free,
okay,
but they do have a forgiveness portion of it where if you're in the property for a long enough period of time, some of those funds do become forgivable.
Okay.
A lot of people get afraid, oh, I know I got to pay this back sometime. I don't want a second mortgage. But the good thing about it is this. It gives you an opportunity to get into a property where you normally wouldn't have the resources to get into it.
Right.
The key thing is all programs aren't created equal. You may have a credit score that allows you to get FHA financing, but these programs may have a higher credit score than just the FHA financing.
Okay, so the credit score is going to help me to get my money, whether I have to pay a lot of interest or a little interest or to get in the program. Okay, so what's the basic score? I know we said a little bit last time, but what's the basic? What can I get a house with, basic.
Okay, and that's all relative to where you're at and what you're trying to do.
Okay.
If you say, okay, I have down payment, I have my closing, I'm good to go, you can actually get FHA financing with as little as, with a score as low as 585.
585.
But you'll need the funds to be able to close, and it may be a slightly higher down payment. Now, Fannie Mae just relaxed their guidelines where there's no credit score minimum, meaning that normally when the score need to be 620, 640, 660, they're not going to look at your score. They're going to look at your payment history on other revolving credit lines, or if you have non-traditional credit, they're able to bring that in as a factor to determine, okay, is this person credit worthy for us to give them a down payment?
Okay.
I mean, give them a loan.
Give them a loan. Okay, so Fannie Mae is going to give me a loan. They're not going to look at my credit score. I don't have to have the 585. Okay, so can I use the first-time home buyer with the Fannie Mae, the Miami-Dade money that they're giving? Can I do that?
That's when it gets a little complicated because, like I said, some financing allows you to have a lower credit score and still get become eligible for the financing. But a lot of the programs, they need to see a minimum credit score. So that's when it gets a little dicey. And that's why I always say it's very important that whichever realtor you're using and whichever lender you're using, you got to make sure that they're thoroughly knowledgeable of all the programs available to you. And I try to make sure that I match my clients with those lenders that have access to all the programs. So to answer your question, you may qualify for the Fannie Mae program or FHA with a lower credit score, but you may not qualify for some of the programs that's out there.
Okay, so all right, viewers, listen to that. Even though the program on Google says you get $10,000 assistance, you still have to look at the guidelines to make sure that the loan is talking to the program and that you can get both or one or the other. But I do know that MD, the Miami-Dade Advocacy Trust, gives some free money. Right? They give grants.
Again, it's not free money, but at a certain point, there's a forgiveness portion of it where if you're in there for an extended period of time, you will be able to get the money forgiven. And there's a sliding scale as well. They look at what they call the AMI, the average median income, and it ranges from 50%, 80%, all the way up to 140%. When you're 80% or below, you can maximize what funds are available to you, which brings you up to $28,500. When you're above that, you can still qualify for up to $14,500. So it still gives you an opportunity to utilize some of the funds that's available through these programs. But again, everything is income driven in most cases.
So what if I have a low income? Can I qualify? Like if I don't make a certain amount, is that what they're looking for? Are they looking for like a low income person or just anybody, maybe first time home buyer? Like what is the criteria just for me to even look at the programs?
Surprisingly, a lot of people have the misconception that this money is available only for people that's destitute or needy. Because let's say, for example, the Hometown Hero program, which is within the state of Florida. You can have an income within the family of four for almost $150,000 for the family income. But some of the other programs where it's going to give you the deep subsidies, then your income needs to be below a certain amount for you to get the maximum income. So again, there's a lot of moving parts to it, but the bottom line is whether you're a single individual making $89,000 a year or a family of five making over $160,000, there's a program that can help you out some kind of way.
Okay, awesome. So that lets us know, because I was one of those people that also thought that I had to be below a certain amount of income even to qualify or even look at the programs. So one of the other things I want people to know is, even though the programs are out there, like you said, 9 times out of 10, there's some criteria. Maybe we're going to give you a second mortgage or second loan, and then if you're in the house for maybe 5 years or whatever their criteria. But I also know sometimes they require you to go to class, a class or or talk to a counselor or something like that. Is that the case with most of the local programs too?
Yeah, some of the programs, they still want you to go and get what they call a home buyer education certificate. It's the 8-hour course that teaches you a lot of the aspects from inspections to budget to credit, all these things.
That's smart.
To make you feel more comfortable as a homeowner. And also, to me, I think everyone should take one of those courses, because not only teaches you what to expect when you buy a home, it prepares you to maintain the property too, as far as not going into foreclosure or falling behind. So some of them require you take that course, other ones don't, but it does give the benefit to the home buyer by educating themselves as far as what to expect.
Smart. That's smart. And I would even say some people that are in their homes now, I see a lot of the seniors moving, and let's say they leave their home to their children who may have never owned a home. So it just makes sense to understand the budget, understand the taxes, understand the mortgage, what happens if you pay late and things like that. And I feel like for a first-time home buyer, that's very important. So as James says, don't look at it and think you can't do it, but it's going to just take some time. It's like anything worth having, you can work for it, right?
Absolutely.
So some of those things, understand, because if you have someone that does an inspection and you don't understand it, then they can leave out things that you may want to have fixed before you get into the house, and you don't know to ask for it.
Right.
You don't know.
And as you mentioned, the inspections, we're living in a time and age where information is right at our fingertips.
Right.
And yeah, you can go online, search, and get all the information that you need, and even find a property to set up, your own viewing of it and everything. But what you have to keep in mind is this: AI can never replace the human element as far as helping you with this process.
Right.
AI is not going to be there with you at the home inspections to go over everything and ask the inspector, say, look, does this look right? And interpret the inspection report for you.
Right.
And renegotiate things if things do go sideways with the contract. There's a lot of hand-holding that's involved, especially when you're buying your property for the first time or even selling your property for the first time.
Right.
So I know in my years of experience, I've always noticed that the most successful transactions with the clients who educate themselves and ask the good questions to make sure they understand the process. Because I tell people all the time, if I'm doing something I've never done before, you have to explain it to me like a third grader.
Right.
Because I want to be crystal clear as far as what's expected of me and what I need to hold you accountable for. Because everybody in this transaction works for you. They're not going to get paid unless you're sitting at the closing table. So you have to hold them accountable.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is educating yourself to ask the right questions in order to get the answers to help you make that decision.
I like that too, because even when I purchased my first house, the first time, I really didn't understand the process. So a coworker recommended the Realtor, and the Realtor said I had to put a deposit for services of $1,000. I did not know that that was not a requirement. So I put the $1,000 down, and the home that we were looking at, it fell through because the fireplace was leaking and the roof, the sliding glass door was leaking into the basement. So he wanted me to sign and let the seller off the hook that I would take care of it. And then I said, well, why would I take care of it? It's not my home. So anyway, the deal fell through, but he kept my $1,000 as work that he had already done. But if you do your homework, viewers, you will realize that reputable people will understand that you are a first-time home buyer. You don't understand. They probably will recommend a class.
Right.
And then they will tell you kind of like the ins and outs. But I learned the hard way. So I try to tell people that. And so I'm telling them, like you said, it's better to get a realtor, somebody that knows you. You're thinking about the percentage you're going to pay, but think about all the stress you go through when you don't have somebody. So what about the Miami-Dade Housing and Finance Authority? I saw them online. Do they have money too?
Yeah, there's a lot of local organizations that specifically know the market here in Miami and know what the needs are. They get their funds from state funding, but also there's criteria that you need to qualify for. They look at debt to income ratio. They look at family size. They look at overall household income. And the thing about that is, you could use their program, layer with another program, layer with another program. And a lot of people, if they're dealing with the lender, they don't have access or not knowledgeable in these other programs, they're never going to offer them these programs. That's why it's important that when you choose your realtor, that you explain to your realtor, look, I want to get as much funds that I qualify for. So please put me in contact with a lender who not only have access to those funds, but is willing to work with you as a first-time home buyer in order to maximize and leverage all those funds that's available to you.
Amen. I want all the money. Don't leave any money on the table.
Not a dime.
But I find out as I talk to more people in this business arena, we leave a lot of money on the table. It's almost like they're trying to force people to get the money. So I want last show you talked about you had a client that you were able to stack, because people a lot of times won't believe it until they see it. Right. So you tell us how you helped the young man buy his first property, get his condo by stacking programs.
Right. First of all, when I saw what his income was, I know to buy a property here in Miami-Dade that he needed a lot of assistance. And I knew I had to put him in line with a lender who has access to all the program, not only access to, but was willing to put in the work to get the file done. Now, those are not easy files. It's not a 30-day contract to closing type deal.
Okay.
You're dealing with multiple agencies, there's a lot of moving parts, and each one have their own underwriting practices. So your realtor got to be able to hold that deal together, explain to the seller where you're at with everything. So that way things are overpromised and underdelivered. So once you have a lender that's willing to do all the programs, then you got to monitor the details throughout the whole thing to make sure that it gets from the first lender, get that approval, and get over to the other agencies that's needed to get the second approval to get the funds. And it's also important that the title company is familiar using these programs too, because they're getting several different wires coming in, different requirements, different closings. So it is a lot of moving parts. It can be overwhelming, but the most important thing is whoever you have working for you have to understand the process and make you feel comfortable with the process too. But an example that you were on, that you brought up, yeah, he qualified by himself for like 120, 130,000. He wanted to buy a condo that was almost 300,000. So even though his affordability was so low, with the several agencies, there were 2 programs from Housing Community Development that he was able to utilize, another one for MD, Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust, and plus the lender gave him an incentive of $3,000. So long story short, he was able to buy a property that was almost $300,000 coming out of pocket with only a little bit over $7,000.
Wow.
And kept his payments manageable as well. So, and he was just outside of the boundaries of the homestead CRA, because he could have got another $10,000 if he was within those boundaries. So there's a lot of good options out there. But again, the realtor and the lender has to have access to those funds and willing to work them.
So tell me, you said the average process is about 30 days if there are no programs and all that stuff. What, in that situation, how long was the average time that it took?
I think that one took a little bit over 70 days. That's just because in certain agencies, they don't even start underwriting the subsidies until you get the full approval from the lender themselves. But there's other ones that work it simultaneously, so it can coordinate to do one of these deals and close it 30, 45 days. That's why it's important that who's ever working for you understands the program, so there's no delays. And I always tell my clients and the lenders I work with, look, copy me on every email. So whatever's required, if they're not on top of it, I'll make sure, okay, did you get the email? Let's get the documents together. So when they do send things back, they may ask for something that's already sent, and I already have it in my inbox. I say, oh, here it is. They already sent it to you. So that's why communication and question is so important throughout this whole process.
So I before we get to the so those were the local programs. So I want to talk about the national programs, but I want to tell everybody that I use one of the national programs. So after I went through everything with that first realtor, I waited another year. That thing kind of took me down a little bit. I was like, it should not be this hard. And he took my $1,000, right? So then somebody recommended a realtor for me. She used to drive an hour and 45 minutes for me. She was an older lady. And I didn't know about any of these programs. So I had some money to put down, but she hit me to this program with Bank of America. Never heard of it. I had went through other national programs, like I did the classes for Acorn and NAC, and we'll talk about that too. But the Bank of America, she not only got me the loan, but I put no money down, and the house that I was buying needed some work. So she was like, add an extra 5, and then I got 5,000 at the end to actually do some of the work. So I had the 5,000 back. I got the low interest loan from Bank of America, and I had no money down. So I don't know if it's because I had a great credit score. I don't know if because I did a lot of praying, but this lady helped me so much. And that's why I keep saying you need a good realtor. Maybe you go through the bad one the first time, but like you said, you are so knowledgeable about the programs. So now let's go. Did you have any more local ones you wanted to talk about before I go to the national?
There's a lot of smaller ones, like private municipalities have Miami Gardens, have City of Homestead have programs. Broward have a lot of programs, and each municipality in Broward has a lot of programs as well. So finance is like fingerprints. Everybody's different.
Okay, got it.
It's key that the realtor and the lender understands that buyer's financial situation to see what the needs are, to maximize what programs are available to them. So, there's a lot. There's a whole list, but each buyer is unique.
So do you recommend that when the buyers come that sometimes Google is not your friend, especially with medicine? I'm just like, why? Okay, I'm dying. Something's happened. You get on Google and you think you're dying. So is Google your friend for this? Like, should I come to you with all these different things, or is it just good to know?
It's a good starting point to start the conversation, because if you have a general idea of what should be available to you, you can almost pre-qualify your agent to make sure that at least they have some working knowledge, or advise you something even better than that. That's a good thing about the internet and being able to do searches, that you could verify what people tell you to see if there's facts behind it or not. So if you're ever unsure what you're being told, do your own research. But it's also a good idea to come say, look, I heard about this program, that program. Will it work for me? And they say, this one may, if it's a good realtor, if it's a good loan officer. And the key thing is you have to make sure it's coming from reliable source. That's why when you do choose to work with a realtor, that either they come from a referral of someone who had actual a good experience with them, or maybe through another source that you trust as well. Because, in every industry, there's people that's part of the profession that, they're questionable. So it's definitely important that you feel comfortable with who you're working with.
I agree with that. Okay, so we talked about Bank of America, who actually now will give up to $10,000 towards your down payment. You talked a little bit about the Florida Hometown Heroes, and I think it says they give 5%. And then if you stay in the house, you have to stay at least 5 years. But I wanted people to know the Hometown Hero is just not military. It's teachers, nurses, law enforcement. I know at one time they used to have like the officer next door or something like that. So I feel like Hometown Heroes expanded who can get it.
Right. I think at the last count, it was over 95 professions and industries that could qualify.
Wow.
Yeah. So each year they come out, when they refund it, they'll see where the biggest needs are and target those particular professions. And even, for example, the income could be a lot higher than some of the local programs here, because their whole goal is to make sure the working professionals have access to funds to get them into properties. So, the Hometown Hero is definitely an excellent source as well. It is a second mortgage that's tagged onto the back. That does have a repayment component to it, but also there are other programs where it can be forgiven.
Okay, I like that. So you would want the second mortgage. Why? Because you don't have a down payment, or if you need it for a big a house that costs more money? Like, what situation will make me want to get a second mortgage?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the thought or the sound of a second mortgage scares people. But 9 times out of 10 is either going to be a 0% interest on it. It's going to be deferred to the back of the loan, or it's going to be forgiven over a certain period of time. So, as long as you know the numbers, even if it's 2 or 3 secondary loans, subordinate loans, that's part of it, your lender needs to be able to tell you, even though we have all this stacked together, this is what your fixed payment is going to be.
Okay.
The only time it'll change if once you pay off something, if something else kicks in, the key thing is asking the question, will my payment change or will it stay consistent even though I have these other loans throughout the entire life of the loan?
Okay.
So the most important thing is not the aspect that you have a second mortgage or something stacked on top of it, but what is my monthly obligation and will that change?
Okay, so if I start off, I want to know what's my house payment going to be. So when I am in my home for 5 years or I pay off. Okay, this is another question. See, I'm coming up with all these questions. When we are paying the mortgage, who gets paid first, the primary or the secondary?
Well, it depends how it's structured. Some of the loans are deferred.
Okay.
And some of them are a soft second that amortizes with the payment of your first loan.
Tell me the third grade. You take amortization.
But amortization is just this. Each time you make a payment is going towards the pay off the principal of the loan, as opposed to a balloon payment. Some balloon payments, all you're doing is paying the interest. And then at a certain date in the future, you got to pay the entire principal amount back. Amortization just means that as you're paying on a loan, what you owe is getting smaller and smaller.
Okay, good.
Right. So basically, it doesn't really affect your payment 9 times out of 10. If it does, your lender will explain to you what the difference would be. Some of them may be as little as 2% interest rate that may add $30 a month to your payment. Okay. And the thing is, the reason why somebody would want to look at this as an option is this. Let's look at the MDEET program. Okay. If you're qualified for the 28.5, we were talking earlier as far as what the your out-of-pocket expenses would be if you didn't have any assistance.
Right.
So if your requirement from the lender is 7% approximately with down payment and closing costs on the $500,000, that's $35,000.
$35,000.
So if you're able to get the 28.5, that offset that significantly.
Okay, I like that.
So you have to keep that in mind. You got to weigh the good and the bad. Is this second mortgage worth it? What is it going to cost me per month? And what's it going to save me out of pocket to get into this property?
Okay, so I could use the second mortgage to pay off some of my down payment, right? Could I use that to get like more, like they'll say, you qualify for 300,000. Could I use that to like qualify for a house for 400,000?
In some cases, yes. Let's say that by yourself, let's say the city of Miami, for example, let's say by yourself, you only qualify for a $350,000 home, but you want a $500,000 home.
Right.
If you meet the requirements in District 5, there's a program that will give you an additional $200,000 to offset that price. Now, your payment will be based on what your affordability is. But with the subsidies that come in, it allow you to purchase that property, but still have your payment at the amount you can afford. So yeah.
What they do? Add on to, like, instead of 30 years, I'm paying 50 years?
No. What it is, again, it has a forgiveness portion to it.
Okay, I like that.
And it's a sliding scale. The longer you stay in the property, the more it's forgiven.
Now, that's good.
Most of these programs, if it hasn't reached the forgiveness portion, if you move out of the property and you renting it out, it becomes an investment property. It's no longer owner occupant, and they can call that note due. If you refi the property, then they could ask for that money at that point because it was meant for you to help you get into the property. Or if you sell it, they're going to recoup their money right there at the closing table because it's still an active loan that's on the property. Wow, if you haven't reached the forgiven threshold yet.
Okay, got it. So as I was doing my research, most that I saw said 5 years. So if I stay in my home 5 years, I don't rent it, I don't sell it, that's my primary residence. If I sold it after that time, after the forgiveness, then it just kind of goes away.
Right, that all the equity become yours.
Okay,
because there is a recapture portion of equity if you sell it prior to. That's the reason why it's set up like that is they don't want the program to be abused with the investors that want to come in, use the money that should be allocated for first-time home buyers just to buy a property within a year, sell it at a higher price, and just outprice the people that want to live in the property.
I like it. Well, we talked a little bit about the NACA program, the Neighborhood Assistance Program of America. Does that kind of fall in line with the rest of them? Is it like a second mortgage or is it free money?
Well, they have a lot of relationship with banks that give relaxed terms. They give closing cost assistance. and also reduce interest rates. So depending on which city you're in, which program they're advocating, it can be used to do the first time home buyer purchases
Okay.
and also offset out of pocket and the purchase price as well. So again, once you sit down with your lender and they figure out what your affordability is, what your debt to income ratio, how much money you have available for down payment and closing costs, then that lender should be able to say, well, look, everything looks great. You have good income. You should be able to afford this payment, but you may be lacking in down payment or closing costs.
Okay.
Let's get you over here. Or it may be something where there's a program with a bank that give a reduced interest rate. Also, speaking of that, let's say that for whatever reason you don't qualify for any programs, but you still want to get into a property, you have some money to put down.
Right.
You can negotiate with the seller to pay a certain portion
Of the
back
quote.
to you to buy the rate down for a lower rate, offset your out-of-pocket closing costs. There's a lot of things that could be negotiated by your realtor when they're negotiating on your behalf. That's why it's important for them to know your situation to
Right.
determine if they got to negotiate accepting the terms of the program or ask the seller to pay 3 to 6% of your closing costs to help you with your out-of-pocket expenses. And with FHA, it does allow the seller, if they're able to pay up to 6% of your closing costs. If a seller's able to do that on a $500,000 property, we're talking about $30,000
Wow.
that the seller may be willing to go towards your closing costs.
Okay.
Conventional, they cap it at 3%. But again,
That's
there
a
is a
lot of money.
possibility to negotiate closing costs from the seller on top of the programs as well.
Wow. Okay. What we are running out of time. This is our last 30 seconds. I feel like I need a third show, but I hope you all have enough to go out there and be ready to get a house and understand what you're trying to do. Again, our guest is James Bunyan, Mr. James Bunyan, the owner and realtor and broker of Millennium 3 Realty. And I'm Dr. Carolyn Edwards. We are trying to help you get your life and live your best life today. We see you next time.